Hi everyone, hope you're well. Welcome to DOdaily Tuesday training. Des here, just getting out for a late evening meander, a walk down by the river to process my thoughts, to try to motivate and inspire you guys to pick the week up and give it your best shot. Personally, I've had a really busy day, and whilst I've been almost apologetic for coming on a little bit later than normal recently, today it's kind of all my choice. Normally like to get on for 8 o'clock. Everything's been up in the air, but today I was actually working all the way until 8 o'clock, and then I just needed half an hour just to process everything before having to think again, come back out. But it's a nice way to round things off, to finish up. Really cool, the river's calm. It's only just got dark, so it's not too late. But again, it's just about piecing everything together and realising what's worked and what isn't. Of course, on DOdaily, that's all I'm ever trying to do, is understand myself a little bit to try and help others. And today, to be honest, got some really nice feedback. After last night's episode, somebody messaged me and told me some things about themselves and how much this has kind of helped. That's amazing, you know. Whilst I do want to help people, whilst it's always great to get, it's not the reason I do it, but that doesn't do any damage to my confidence and my sort of outlook either, does it? You know, knowing that somebody's taken something from it somewhere is absolutely brilliant. It's not the most watched YouTube channel in the world. It probably never will be because of the subject I'm talking about and the fact I'm no expert in the areas I talk about. But, you know, all I've ever said from day one is when one person can pick out something, think it's relevant to them, think it's useful, things I was talking about yesterday in terms of finding that motivation to go again, somebody could relate with. But on top of that, I also had a message from a friend about another friend asking me to get in touch, you know. And again, if that's kind of the role that I'm here to do these days, because I'm quite open, quite candid about my feelings and quite prepared to ask difficult questions as and when necessary, because that's what it takes sometimes, isn't it? Then I'm quite happy to fulfill that role and do what I have to do, because the important issue is mental health and getting to the bottom of it, and wherever we can, you know, sometimes it is uncomfortable, you know, sometimes this is an uncomfortable watch, but again, when people are sort of taking note, looking in, realising the positivity that I try to exude, you know, I try to pass on, and the encouragement I give to people to realise that it's okay sometimes not to be right on top of things. The examples I used last night was the perfect example to the email I got, to the message. I haven't had a chance to get back to them because of the busy day, but I definitely will. You know, I always get back to everybody, so if anybody else is feeling like they need to reach out, just DM away from creating conversation. And one of the reasons I've kind of processed everything and thought about what I'm saying, because I want to get things right. I don't want to sort of ruin anybody's trust by getting it wrong. But again, it's just an example of when it is working. And again, a feather in my cap, I guess. You know, it's not the easiest thing for me to do this. A lot of the time, the procrastination comes from a lack of confidence or worrying about what I'm going to say and how I'm going to do it. But it's important just to be that honest, relatable and realistic person. Words I like to use about myself, you know, I'm not being arrogant or self-appreciating, but it's just the way I try to be through what I'm doing here. And thankfully, somebody saw something in that, seen something in that, and realises that there's something we can do together to take it forward. I always say that I hope well, not that hope, kind of picked up this role of being a port of call for people who perhaps want to talk and want to do things. And whilst none of us really want that role, because we want everybody around us to be amazing, to be on top form, to be the best versions of themselves, it's an honour as well, it's a privilege. So anybody who has made contact, especially those I've not got back to yet, please don't feel bad about it. It's lovely to do. This is why I do it. I want to be somebody who supports and helps and encourages, and having the chance to sort of speak outwardly, do what I do here. Again, I'll reiterate how much it's not easy sometimes telling people your bad points. When we're not in a good place, we hide behind them, we mask over them or blame someone else, as I touched on yesterday. But the reality is, for anything, we can only sort of look at self, look inwards, look in the mirror and realise what we can do to put it right. What I will say to anybody who's struggling a little bit or has struggled in the past, the first thing you have to do is try and cut out all negativity. And that's kind of what I want to build the episode around today. Having said what I've said about people getting in touch, which is absolutely fantastic, which is amazing, but for anybody who hasn't got in touch, for anybody who's wondering what they can do, the first thing we have to do, however we can do it, is cut out the negativity. I spent a lot of time around negative people who didn't have my best interest at heart, in all sorts of environments, not just in one. I'm not picking on anybody, I'm not labelling anybody in particular, but people who didn't have my best interest at heart, so I had to remove myself. That's not easy. I'm not saying that's necessarily the first step, but the one thing that dawns on me, and the reason I'm kind of mentioning it is because there's been some changes to the way WhatsApp works today about privacy, and it just sort of sprung something after the way people have messaged me and the way sometimes you can feel a little bit insecure around those things. The first thing to look at in this day and age, if you're not feeling great, is social media. Not just what you read, what you look at, but what you put out as well. I'll be completely honest with you. You hear me always talk about football. On Twitter especially, I used to get into so many Twitter debates, when people were being silly. I've never been one, some people might beg to differ, I've never been argumentative, but kind of got into debates when people were being silly or being negative or being rude for the sake of it. But I realised at some point I had to stop getting into those arguments. I started posting all my running stuff on, all my good stuff, and people was all of a sudden like, why didn't you post about football anymore? And then that used to create a bit of debate. But what I found was best was just to ignore. I touched on it a little bit yesterday. I've touched on it through a few things, through people being nasty. But the best thing we can do, any negative comments, we've all got a block button. And don't get me wrong, I don't even block. I get criticism for what I do here. I get people mock and snigger, because I am no expert, because it doesn't get many viewers. But again, it does help. But I get people doing all those things, and initially it got to me, it's a way of bringing me down. Then there was a point where I had to block people, I had to block out the noise. And then all of a sudden, you just realise that you're doing something okay. The comments, back in the day when things weren't great, comments kind of knocked me off from a good place. Negative comments, bitchy comments, people taking the piss. It was enough. Just one little thing was enough to ruin a whole day. But these days, that comment in the morning is enough to make a whole day. The good feeling I get knowing that somebody's helped, who, of course, by making that connection, wants to help themselves. So while I'm saying look at social media, actually, in the grand scheme of things, the first thing is to make connection, and that's what I'm doing. This is as much for me as it's for anybody else. It's important to reach out, talk about it, admit things. I admitted there that I was moany and got into arguments on Twitter, when at the time it was everybody else's fault. It wasn't me. And again, I kind of defended myself by saying I'm not argumentative. I did feel I was defending people at times or asking people not to be nasty. But at the end of the day, it's still a negative comment that we probably need to steer away from. If everybody blocks out the negativity, we ain't going to have a problem, are we? I get a little bit defensive now for others. People I know who are working really hard, who are doing things, and I see comments and I see things. And again, rather than necessarily go in 2 feet, which I have done, when I feel it's really necessary, what I tend to do is just block them out myself, because the more people that do that, the better it is. And I think there's so much around social media. Of course, I'm doing something here through social media, but it's with a positive outlook. It's with the hope of trying to encourage people. I just think it's important that sometimes we put it down for a second. We forget all the noise. We turn the noise down, block it out, and then when you're in a better position to deal with it, you deal with it. From putting myself in a position to do running clubs, to create events, to do things that have worked really well, lots of people often want to have a pop, say nasty things. I was doing a YouTube channel last night, of course, for Mr. Door, who I go to the Forest match with. Some crazy comments on there. I laughed them off, but they stick a little bit. But it doesn't bother me, because at the end of the day, that's somebody else's insecurities. If they've got something to say, there's not really a great deal we can do about it, because I'm trying to make this point this week that it's actually all about us, isn't it? It's all about what we want to do, how we want to do it. Started tonight's episode by saying I'm late again and been moaning and upset with myself for losing my routine. But then I needed it as well tonight. I needed to make a choice for me. I've done that a lot in the last couple of weeks, still readjusting. So again, I've got to keep that at the back of my mind, that my working week is bizarre. Lots of people say to me, how do you find time to do all this stuff? Well, basically, I squeeze it in. My work-life balance is a bit bizarre. I work early, have a bit of time in the afternoon and work late. But if I work in the day, I tend to work quite late into the evening as well. So I've made those readjustments, but it's all about making it work for me so we can support others. And what I'm almost getting to is, when we turn the noise out, when we're hard trying to help others, again, it's just setting that example that you can rise above it, isn't it? It'll be, I said there that I defend others, and I have done. But some ways that's not, in many ways, whilst it's a necessary action, if somebody's completely crossed the line, it's not the best thing to do, is it? Because if you're saying, sort of look at yourself, get through it, turn the noise down, then the last thing you want to be doing is arguing someone else's case as well, because you're not setting the example. And I think it's important, guys, just to really, really stick together. It feels like when I get those messages that, again, unfortunately, somebody else is experiencing things I have. I kind of get them in the sense that people think I'm still suffering, and I'm not ashamed to admit when I am, but I'm not suffering from them. I just understand them now. And what we haven't got is enough people sharing the message of how we can just be positive, just be happy, sometimes show a little bit of class. And I think that's important as well, isn't it? Just to rise above things. And if things are upsetting us, look at how we can change them. Yesterday, I was talking about getting back to my routines, stop blaming all sorts of outside influences. Today, I'm talking about social media. I'm talking about taking criticism. But, why would we let any of that ruin all the things that we think are important in the first place? Because I get such a good feeling from doing DOdaily. It's a small, tiny little YouTube channel in the grand scheme of things, with other people who probably talk a lot more sense than me. But do they do it from the heart? Do they do it because they genuinely genuinely want to help, and that's all I want to do. I want to support people, you know, as much as I can. I've got people to get in touch with, people to have a chat with. Once again, thank you to those for reaching out who think I'm of some use. You know, that means a lot. That means more than anything. When people put their trust in faith into you, you know, it makes the world a difference. It makes you realise that you are significant. And we've all been a little bit guilty at some point in our life of feeling a little bit down, a little bit out the loop, and a little bit like time's passing us by. Right now, you know, I enjoy every minute I can. I work as hard as I can to create opportunities. Believe me, things don't come naturally. This has been the slowest of slow burners. I think I've got 680 something subscribers in 2.5 years. It doesn't matter, because I've got a real purpose and intention to keep driving on. Normally on a Tuesday, sorry, there was nearly a crash there. Normally on a Tuesday, I'll be talking about the Tuesday training and a big effort with activity to get the week going. But because of the busyness, it's not quite worked out. I was up early this morning, coaching the guys along the river. Again, Tuesdays, trying to find this balance of making them work. Just taking a bit of readjustments and then more adjustments again. Making them work is a little bit tough right now, but I'll get there. And I'll get right back into those routines, stuck in, and be absolutely flying. Because all I want to do is be a great example of positivity, enthusiasm, and somebody who does what they say they're going to do. Until tomorrow, guys, when I'm going to be out there getting in my Wednesday workout. Got the running group tomorrow, got the quiz to do after that. I've written that this afternoon, so feel like I'm climbing back on top of it after taking my little break. You know, I've got an opportunity to get to bed early and give it a good shot. Until then, just doing it.